Welcome back to the Snow Point Cast. Today we're going to be interviewing Sebastian Crema. He's had notable finishes in 2004, 2006, and 2009. Welcome to the show, man. How are you?
Hey, Drew. Thanks for having me, man. It's really good to be here. It's been a while since I've seen you, man, so it's good to stay in touch.
Definitely been a minute. I feel like the last time I saw you was maybe like 2017 some year. 2016 Worlds, I know I saw you, but after that, I don't know.
Yeah, man. I think you whooped my butt at Smash Bros a few times since then, man. But I'm glad you've forgotten.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, so let's start talking about 2004 a little bit. So you played Blaziken in 2004, right?
Yeah, that's right. I played Blaziken, and I was kind of fortunate enough during the World Championships to be still in the seniors division, in the 11 to 14 age category, and for myself, I was 14 at the time, and my 15th birthday was coming up a month after Worlds. So, I felt that gave me, quite a bit of an edge in terms of sort of the sort of thinking and strategizing, right, just based on age, and which in the seniors category it can be a bit different,
especially in 2004.
Yeah, big time. I mean, the format was quite skill based. There was a lot of thinking involved, and when I was playing against some of these younger guys, I feel like just by virtue of my age, I had a bit of an advantage.
Yeah, it's definitely an advantage when you have a birthday like in August. I feel like that's something that you don't really know unless you're playing in seniors, and that age gap is a big deal. Like from 12 to 15, like that's a pretty big mental gap, really.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I kind of recognized, in most of my testing I was doing with, was all with guys in the older age category, some of the kind of the old school guys. So I had got myself kind of, ready playing against the Masters, strong players as well. So I kind of knew that that was probably my, best chance for a while to do anything on the world stage.
So I know you worked with a lot of Pacific Northwest guys. Who was all in that crew that you worked with when you used to play a bunch back in the day?
So yeah, it was kind of cool, man. I mean, way back, I used to have to go down to Washington and Oregon for tournaments. There were no events really in BC for many years, and so I met a lot of these guys. Ross, Michael Chin. A lot of these, top Northwest players, Levi Canfield at the time. So, these were all guys.
Did you work with Tyler as well?
Sorry?
Did you work with Tyler as well?
Yes, of course, Tyler. Yeah, absolutely. So, all these guys were guys who I had competed against, and we kind of had friendly rivalries back in the day as we competed in these Northwest events. And eventually it sort of through Mikey Fouché, actually, sort of an East New York guy. We sort of connected, and it was funny. I mean, I never really did much actual play testing, for example, against Ross and Michael Chin. But it was more, Mikey kind of included me in their circle, and we sort of bounced ideas off each other. I did play test with Mikey quite a bit, and so he was, nice enough to sort of let me into their sort of think tank, that they had, and it was really interesting. Around Worlds, especially, is when sort of we would bounce ideas off each other. I was never really sort of in exactly, part of their X-Files crew throughout the season. But when it came to the World Championships, they were kind enough to sort of include me in a bit of their discussion. And every year, it seemed like we would always touch base just at the right time before the Worlds. And, a lot of the times these guys came up with some top-notch decks, and I was fortunate enough to sort of be included.
Well, I mean, you and Mike Fouché had a really impressive finish in 2006. You guys both played bomtar, and you both got top 32. I'm actually really surprised that you guys didn't go further in the tournament. I know personally why you didn't. If you want to explain, I mean, it kind of depends, because back in the day, a lot of players don't know that, there was single Swiss rounds, and top 32 didn't work like it does today. They don't realize that it was a single day two, single elimination. If you lose your round, you're kaput. You're out of the tournament.
Yeah, man. 2006 was a tough tournament, tough format. And I was fortunate enough in the Swiss rounds to not lose a game. I think I went 8-0. But that obviously can only carry you so far. And obviously I ran good on that first day at Worlds with the deck that Mikey and I had kind of put together, the bomtar deck. But yeah, we ran pretty hot. 2006 was cool because LBS was the top deck at the time, and everybody was kind of gunning for it. We kind of came to the conclusion, Mikey and I and others, that we felt that LBS was a strong deck, and we knew that a lot of people would play it, but we felt that it was so much countered against that it would not go on to win the tournament.
Right. It's like very clearly the BDIF.
Yeah. It was at the time. It was most popular. It had done a ton of success, but the World Championships is a little bit funny. It's always sort of the anomaly of an event where decks, people think that they have the entire format figured out, and there's more often than not there's some element of surprise at Worlds. I mean, you've seen it so many years, and the Worlds is really the tournament where that typically takes place. There's so many people from all over the world putting so much energy into coming up with creative decks, and they all kind of meet in the same place. So Mikey and I in 2006 really felt that LBS, we knew it was strong, but it was so countered against, and people were gunning so hard to beat it, that we kind of felt that it would not go all the way.
Right. And that's kind of like a more advanced meta read as a like Masters player, because you have to read, okay, I have to get past the LBS that I'm going to see in day one. But if I make this read on day two where I don't think there's going to be any LBS, you can play a deck like bomtar that's like has an inherent weakness to LBS, but alternatively has really good matchups against everything else. So, I mean, if you can dodge the LBS or have that meta read, that secures but it gives you a really good shot to win the tournament, really.
Yeah, and that's exactly the sort of the mentality that Mikey and I went into that event with. And I mean, definitely I would say LBS was at least a slight favorite against the bomtar deck, no matter what we kind of, no matter which build that we used. We had sort of slight counters for it, as I'm sure you're familiar, with Lunatone and Solrock. And we also had, I think Mikey and I both ran the Rayquaza Star at the time, which seemed like a bit of a gimmick. And a lot of people I know have sort of taken it out of the modern builds, which is fair. But that was another card that I felt like gave us an additional out against LBS for sort of a one-turn sweep kind of a win. But a lot of these things were very situational. It would be tough to pull off. I always went with the strategy of wanting to have an answer for everything. And I never wanted to give an edge in a matchup. I really always wanted to have the entire board sort of covered in terms of the decks that I knew. So, one of my probably weaknesses in deck building was I would always sort of include maybe a 1 line or a 1/1 kind of line. So I had an answer for other decks. And in order to do so, I would sacrifice consistency that probably in the long run might not be beneficial.
Right. And I think that's like part of the balance of being a good deck builder is you have to know which techs are worthy to include, especially based on a meta. Like you have to read a meta, say, okay, these decks are good. I have negative matchups to these decks, and I think they're going to do well. So I think I'm going to cut a little bit of my consistency for those techs, but finding that balance can be really hard.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why tweaking your deck is so important all the time, and kind of finding finding the balance, like you said. I mean, sometimes it might be okay to just say, hey, you know what? I am a 30-70, matchup against one kind of deck, and I'm just kind of going to accept that. But then, against the other decks, I might be, quite strong. So, Pokemon, there's luck involved. So at any time you could win that 30-70 if it came down to it. But I just kind of felt like in a 2 out of 3 situation, I never wanted to give myself, an auto loss. I always kind of wanted to be in it, because at the time, it was a little bit easier, not easy, but it was a little bit less challenging to make top cuts as sort of a higher level player at the time, because the formats were slower. It was quite skill based, and there were we were getting to top cut quite consistently, so we really
Right.
wanted to have a deck that in a 2 out of 3 game had an answer to all decks.
Especially when you're working with those like top players like Ross Cawthon and Mike Fouché. Like back in the day, those guys were kings of the game. Like Ross got second the year before in 2005. So to be working with those guys, it totally makes sense that you were advancing as quickly as you were. Like 2004, you got was it top 4 in 2004?
Yeah, 4th place in 2004.
Yeah.
They actually had a third place game in 2004, which is interesting.
Really? Did you win that game?
No, I lost. I got smoked.
Dang.
And it was funny. It was funny too at the time because prior to the World Championships in 2004, they actually only gave top 3 players an invite to return to the Worlds next year. So my understanding when I was playing that 3rd place game is that this is for an invite and a trip to next to the 2005 World.
Oh my God.
So and I got smoked, but you know what? They were kind enough afterwards. They extended it to the 4th place, like totally unexpected. So I was able to luckily get an invite to 2005 as well.
Wow, yeah, that's a big weight off your shoulders, especially when you're expecting, oh wow, now I have to grind my invite this year. When Pokemon just says, no, we got you.
Yeah, that was super cool, man.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on a little bit, we're going to talk about 2009. So you did really well in 2009 as well. You got top 8 with Flygon Memory Berry. So how did your run go until like top 8? Like when you picked Flygon at the beginning of the event, what did you think the meta was going to shake out to be? And then did it shake out the way that you thought it was going to?
Well, yeah, so another sort of neat thing with Flygon was that the X-Files crew kind of worked on it together again and sort of let me in on some of their thinking. And I believe it was actually Tyler Ninomura who created the deck a couple months prior to Worlds, and I'm not sure if they were sort of taking it as seriously, but then Mikey shared it with me, and I really kind of fell in love with it. I do like sort of unique decks that are unexpected, have sort of different ways to win, and yeah, man, we started getting that together, and I did a lot of my testing with Kyle Puka as well. So I would kind of bug him to play me all the time, and he would get sick of playing me because I'd use the same deck all the time, and I'd make him change decks. So I'm not sure there was much benefit in him playing against Flygon Memory Berry for a month leading up to Worlds in 2009. But he was kind enough, and to do so. So yeah, we kind of got that one together, and then I believe Tyler used it in the grinder. And I think Mikey and Tyler used it in the grinder as well. I forgot if Mikey had already qualified, but Tyler, I think, went 8-0 and grinded in with it in 2009. So yeah, I mean, the deck kind of counted on a little bit of surprise. We used sort of a unique strategy. For those who aren't familiar, we used Memory Berry to use Trap Inch's
inviting trap
attack. Yeah, inviting trap, and then there was another one. I forget what it was called. Where you block them from retreating. So I think it's 10 damage. Sand Tomb, I believe it was.
Yeah, Sand Tomb. Yeah. So
the Sand Tomb was the real key because you could bring up a Claydol at the time using Palkia's level X restructure, and then you could lock it there because there weren't many switching cards played at the time in that format. Nobody really ran 2 high copies of Switch, Warpoint, those kind of things, maybe single copies at most. There was definitely Poke Turn for SP, which was of course a concern. But people, they wouldn't really see it coming.
Especially if it's a Claydol. Like you can't SP turn a Claydol, and once you get that resource, like if they do have that 1 or 2 warp point, once that resource is burned, you can just inviting trap the Claydol again.
Yeah, that's correct. So there's different ways to sort of win it and trick people. They use a lot of support Pokemon as well, even like Azelf or something like that. There were many different Pokemon that you could trap up in the active position and start decking them.
Right.
It was that was kind of the purpose of the deck. But then we had an out against SP as well because the decking strategy would not really work against SP because their Poke Turns
so powerful.
Lock. Yep. So we would extreme attack was good. I ran a 1/1 Mewtwo level X to which totally blocks basic Pokemon damage. So if they did not run a counter, it was kind of an auto win.
Right.
And I think SP decks at the time were sort of 50-50 on running counters or not. And a lot of them decided to cut them. So and that kind of worked out in my favor.
Yeah, and it kind of depends on the SP build, I guess. If you're playing against a more like a Dialga Palkia, but I think Dialga Palkia kind of died at Nats, right? Because Puka won Nats that year with Luxape, I think.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I think most of the SP I played were kind of like Luxray, Infernape, Dialga kind of decks, and not so much the Dialga Palkia variant.
Yeah, that definitely seems harder for Flygon. And what did you play in your top 8 match?
So I played against Sammy from Sammy Sakun from the UK, good buddy of mine. The problem with Worlds and is that Flygon became super popular, and that was kind of out of nowhere. People had been using it a little bit, but we hadn't actually practiced against Flygon much at all. In terms of other variants, and my deck kind of struggled against other Flygons because it would enable them to have free retreat on their whole board. And we're weak to colorless. So in a deck like Sammy's build, Flygon Machamp, which was built more to attack and obviously win the game by taking prizes, we were just at a total disadvantage. Because I didn't play upper energies. I played it would all be manual attachment, and he just had more firepower, and I was never going to be able to lock him. I remember. Both of our games were pretty straightforward. He kind of dominated the top 8 match. But there was one moment where he kind of he put down I think a ball toy to fill up his bench before using any unknown G. We were friends at the time, and often the approach that we would I myself and others would take in a game amongst good friends is we would sort of treat it like it was almost a test game online. We would kind of be pretty casual about things, let guys take back things, whatever. So he quickly realized when he put down the ball toy to fill up his bench without an unknown G that he just about gave me my only way to win the game. And he quickly kind of picked it back up, and I was just like, oh, it's all good, man. Like
in top 8.
Yeah, for sure. No, I definitely remember that. It was instant. He did it right away and realized his mistake. And at the time, I kind of, for whatever reason, I sort of, I prided myself on playing games in a casual manner with opponents also do the same to me. And I know, Sammy's the good guy, and we had kind of a mutual respect for each other. So it's almost like, when you have respect for somebody and you haven't play against a good opponent, you don't really want to win the game by sort of a technical sort of error that I don't know. It's just
or like a judge call instead of having the game finish naturally kind of thing.
Exactly. And that was kind of, I sort of extended that a little bit to top 8, whether that's the right move or whatever. And you know what? There's no guarantee I would have won the game anyways, but I think I would still be in hoops because that was the second game and I would have not had time to win a third game properly. But you know what? It was
and Sebastian, I've known you for a little while. I met you in 2016. We played that regionals that you won with Groudon out of nowhere. You came out of retirement and then was like, oh, I'm just going to play this Groudon list with 3 strong energy and then win a regionals real quick. And I think that kind of speaks to your character too, to be honest. I think that you letting someone take back that play, it's about spirit of the game at that point, and it's not about I want to win this so bad that I'm going to rule shark you,
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, Sammy and I had so much respect for each other, and it's not like, whether it's the right approach or not is debatable, and I'm sure we still would have been friends after, but I just didn't want. I never wanted that to sort of be a defining moment or something that we look back on, and I valued sort of the friendship and the relationships more, and it wasn't like it was just one way. Like that was sort of the mutual respect. If I sort of played like a supporter card, and then I realized, you know what, maybe I want to do something else. I'm sure he would have absolutely let me do the same. So it goes both ways, and it just happened to be, him in that game.
And I think it also speaks to that era as well. Pokemon is like, I know you know this because you started playing again in 2016 for a little bit. It's very different now than it was in 2009 in terms of like lenience, I feel, just because with the amount of cheating that's gone up because of the amount of prize money that's been a thing. So I feel like that's something that's changed a little bit over time. And, personally, I would never do that just because, like, for everyone wants to win. And I'm not saying it's bad that you did that. I'm just saying that, like, some players value different things, especially when there's a lot of money involved. I feel players are not valuing the spirit of the game as much anymore. They're more about, getting the wins so they can get the money. But it's interesting to look back in the day to see it was a little more casual,
Yeah, man, and it wasn't necessarily just a one-time thing. This was totally true even in 2009. I remember first round playing against a Gyarados deck, which was I think the French players came up with the Gyarados deck, which is also a surprise deck in 2009 at Worlds, and I played against them first round. And we both had the same thing. Each of us let each other take back moves, and I think I let him take back something first. It's not like we knew each other. And then later on, I think I made a play where I knocked out a Gyarados, where instead I should have just used the Sand Tube to go for the more discarding cards from the deck. And he said, you know what, you can take it back, man. Like,
really?
So it's not like it only, it's not like it benefited my opponents. Right. It was just kind of the way things worked. And, sometimes it was in your favor and sometimes it's not. And, we kind of took pride in winning the game sort of intellectually, not on a technical victory or whatnot. Right. It's within reason. I mean, I think even the 2016 regionals, the final, I think there was a situation where I forget exactly what it was, but my opponent played a warp point, and I think that Kyle and I actually had been speaking about the ancient barrier trait on Primal Groudon and how it interacts with Warp Point. And I think Kyle and I had discussed that if we selected Groudon as the active to come to the bench, that it would not have to come because of Primal Barrier blocking the effect of Warp Point. But that's not correct. And, this was my first tournament in 2016, in like 5 years.
Right.
So in the final, my opponent played a Warp Point, and I pointed to Groudon and I said, okay, I'm just going to keep him here because the effect blocks it. And that's actually not true. So we played it like 1 or 2 turns later, and the judges came back, after we had already played another turn.
Yeah, the game state was lost.
Yeah, and they're like, that's not the correct ruling. And so they gave me the option at the time. They're like, this is your call. We don't have to rewind things because already a full turn has passed. But it was in a situation where we could have rewinded there was no shuffling. There was, it was pretty straightforward. Right. So I was, look, man, I mean, I'm not going to, use a rule shark here to my advantage when I was incorrect with the rule. And even though, giving back, giving the war point to my opponent, I think it enabled him to use a Shaman power because I had Wobbuffet active blocking his powers. So, that was to his advantage. But I didn't want to be the guy that was, winning regionals because of, incorrectly interpreting a ruling. And, I don't know.
And I think I totally see where you're coming from. The mentality back in the day wasn't, I need to win this game. The mentality was more, through this game, I need to improve how good of a player I am. And when you have that mentality, it's less about, the particulars of should I have won this game and more about like, I'm improving my own skills as a player so that later down the line, I can win more games.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I didn't want to remember games for, being disqualified or being, winning because of, a strange mistake. I'd rather sort of have, known that, the game was won in a sort of a pure and true form of whoever played the game the best. So that's sort of the way a bunch of us approached things back in the day.
Totally. So talking a little bit more about 2016. So you came out of the woodworks after not playing since when was the last tournament before you played in 2009? Like 2011?
I think, you know what, I think I might have played a tournament for fun in 2013, like with zero practice and
Right.
just showed up at a local event. I think it was a big regional or something, just for fun. But I mean, competitively, it would probably have been 5 or 6 years.
Multiple years. So you came out of the woodworks and then won. So how did it feel to, come back, win, and say, I'm still a top player after all these years? Of course, it takes a little bit of luck to win a regionals, but obviously you still had what it took. Like, I played a game versus you, and you played extremely well in our game. Like, you won game one, and then you kept on. You just were like, I'm going to put this Groudon up. You can hit it as much as you want. I'm going to Cassius it back, and then you're going to do it again. And then we went to time on game two. Like, that's just really good awareness of play from you. So how did it feel to come back and know you had the stuff after all those years?
Yeah, man. I mean, it was cool. I've been doing a little bit of practice online with a buddy of mine from BC, Ricky, and that was, he was the only guy.
Dr. Gao.
That's right. Yeah, he was the only guy I played with at all for kind of the months before that. And yeah, I just went down for fun, man. Honestly, I had the weekend free, and I just said, you know what, let's try it out. And ultimately, like you said, I got extremely lucky to be able to sort of ride it out the whole way. I mean, I didn't even play, I think, a Mr. Mime at that point, which was such an obvious inclusion.
Oh my God. When you told me you didn't play 4 strong, I was like, this man's right there.
Yeah, that was just bonkers. I mean, I think I had, I was worried about the special energy removal, but then, Groudon is the perfect counter for that. Like, how could you not play? It was very bizarre. Yeah. I even added like an enhanced hammer right at like 2 minutes before submitting my deck list. I didn't even know what the card did. I didn't even know what Mr. Mime did. Like, I was totally out to lunch, man. Wow. With so many of the cards. And it was really funny, man. I mean, in round two, I started the game, and then I searched through my deck in my round two game, and I realized that like 3 Groudons were prized.
Yikes.
And I accidentally I realized that I looked at my deck box and I accidentally kept six cards in the deck box. Like, I didn't even play with the 6-card deck. So I had to forfeit game one of round two because I was shuffling and like perfectly left 6 cards in my deck box. So then,
do you do the 6-part? Do you do the 6-card pile?
That's the thing. So yeah, exactly. I kind of got. That never happened to me before. It's just so funny. So I was so rusty, and I mean, I didn't even know like what most of the cards did. Like, I was reading cards up until the final. I mean, against when I played Trevenant at the time, it was a new card that it just released in the set, and I honestly I didn't even know what it did. So I was obviously quite fortunate, but I did have like you said, a little bit of the gameplay and timing knowledge. I never played a best 2 out of 3 Swiss before, so that was cool. So I was kind of able to, know when to scoop and sort of know when to use, sort of a, like you said, the Cassius technique, where I kind of realized I wasn't going to win the game, so I just kind of heal my guys and you're not going to get the required prizes.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it's funny. I mean, I played Groudon throughout the whole year and never had as, I qualified for Worlds, but didn't have as much success as I did winning that regionals. And, by far that regionals was the time where I was still the most green at the format, and I still didn't quite understand the game. So it does go to show you that, I did definitely run well in that tournament.
I think that you're being a little bit humble, if I'm being entirely honest. Like, obviously it takes a little bit of luck, but you've been playing since 2004, and not only have you been playing since 2004, you've been getting results since 2004. So, I feel like that was a testament to like your skill as a player, definitely. Even though you didn't know everything that was in the meta, and maybe you didn't play Mr. Mime, and maybe you missed some other stuff, but you still had the awareness of gameplay that got you there.
Yeah, I mean, that was probably my only saving grace that tournament. I mean, I won some strange games, man. Like, I think against Simon Narode, I won a game by decking him out. I think, because I only played 3 strong energy, I had to do like 190 or something to a evil tall and leave it with 10 HP or 20 HP because I couldn't kill it, and that should have been like the end of the game. But something kind of strange happened, and I think I decked him out by using Cassius again, and I didn't even have access to my Bunnelby at the time, I think. So it was like a manual deck out. I think he went through all of his resources, and that was again a game that I had to win. I really didn't have any business winning. If I didn't win that one, I don't think I was in top cut. So, quite a few things went my way in order to win that tournament.
Yeah, and I feel like, honestly, to win any major event, you have to have at least a little bit of luck. Okay, so we're kind of almost wrapping stuff up here. I got one more question for you, and I do ask everyone that comes on the show this question. So if you have advice for anybody listening that wanted to improve at the game of Pokemon, what would be the one piece of advice that you would give somebody?
I would say always look at what you can do better. And I mean that as from a playing standpoint, but also from a deck building standpoint as well. Mm-hmm. It's easy to get sort of stuck in habits, with deck building and playing, and kind of, it's hard to reflect honestly on yourself. And I think you might have chatted with Michael Pramwat a little bit about this at the end of his interview, in terms of, blaming luck for your losses in tournaments. But really you gotta, you have to analyze every decision you make. You have to plan ahead a few turns every game, not just think what you're going to do with cards in your hand. And as well, you have to consistently tweak your list. I mean, one of the things that benefited me, it benefited me, but it also was a hindrance to my game at times as well, is that I would stick with the same deck, for throughout sometimes the whole season, or sometimes play the same deck for months and months, and just change a couple of cards at a time. But what that enabled me to do was know the deck inside and out, and
it's true.
Really know how to react to every deck that I played against, plan ahead, be so comfortable with the deck, know exactly what it can do. And I was never a player really who could pick up a deck the day before a tournament and just go in with it. I couldn't quite be that guy. I would really have to practice and train and really know the deck inside and out, because I feel like if you have that knowledge and if you know what to do in every situation with the deck that you're playing, that can give you an edge in matchups that you should have no business winning. If people make a certain either one or two small mistakes and you play sort of a perfect game, then that can be the difference. For sure. I would say always analyze your own play, but also be comfortable with the deck that you're using. And if you're, get as many games in as you can, and really know the deck inside out.
I think that's a great piece of advice, especially for newer players, because the access of information nowadays is crazy compared to when you played and things were meta. Like, a deck does well, wins an event, it's on Limitless in 2 days. So it's really easy to go and pick up that list and just say, I'm going to play this list because it did well. When if you do what you're doing and you're comfortable with the deck, the amount of misplays that you make with the deck are so much lower.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, man. And even if you have a strong matchup, you can make a misplay that ultimately loses you the game. And I really, again, I really sort of prided myself on not making mistakes, and I think that was a real that was kind of one of the most important things that I could always live with myself if I lost a game because of luck. That there's nothing in my control. But if I ever lost a game by making a crucial mistake, that would really bother me for a long time. And I think that's sort of the approach that was able to sort of propel me to a little bit of tournament success. That's
some great advice, Sebastian. Okay, well, I think that's about it. Did you want to give any shout outs or link any Twitter or any social media?
Well, thanks. No, I mean, thanks for doing this, Drew. I appreciate you reaching out to me. I know, some of the newer players probably are not familiar with, what, they're probably wondering who this old guy is. But I appreciate you sort of taking the initiative with these older formats and, doing, putting them out there. And they're so much fun. They're so skill based. They really are very, very exciting to play and very interesting to play. So the fact that you're doing this stuff is kind of cool. So keep it up, man.
Thanks, homie. Any Twitter? No social media? No.
I'm okay, man.
Okay.
I pretty low, bro.
Okay, no worries. All right. Well, this has been an interview with Sebastian Crema. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.